Have you ever thought about adoption, but then thought, man, I don't have the money to do that? Well, today I'm going to show you how you can do it debt-free. All right, for several months now, my team and I have been wanting to do an episode on this because we kept noticing the topic of adoption pop up in the Facebook group. I love the idea and the heart behind adoption. I mean, seriously, I think it's amazing. Now, even if you're not planning on adopting personally, I bet you know someone who's part of your life who wants to make this a part of their story. So I think there's some really great takeaways in here for everyone. But the thing about adoption is it costs money. And sometimes a lot of money. So in this episode, I'm going to bring on one of my favorite authors and speakers, Lisa Harper, to share her amazing adoption journey with us, and also author Julie Gumm, who wrote the book on how to adopt debt-free. But first, I want to tell you about my own plan for adoption. Listen, adoption is a very personal choice, and I think that some people have a deep conviction and call on their life to do it, which is incredible, and some people don't, and neither one is right or wrong. But for me, as a believer, I know a part of our job is to take care of widows and orphans, and there's so many ways to do that. So for Winston and I, we have a goal in the next 10 years that we would actually love to pay for someone's adoption. And that's our 10-year goal, is to be able to do that for someone, which is just so amazing to think about. And I think that it's fun because I'm like, that could be a reality for us to be able to bless another family because of the money habits that we are doing today, like day in and day out. We're being intentional with our money, which includes our monthly budget. Thank you, every dollar. But also on top of that adoption goal that we have, we attend a church that one of their main missions is foster care. I didn't know a ton about foster care, but the more they talk about it, the more enlightened I am in the subject, where it's crazy, you guys. In the US, there's over 100,000 kids in the foster care system who are ready to be adopted. Listen, there are so many problems in our world and our country that it seems like it's impossible to fix because it takes so much bureaucracy and laws and like all this stuff. But foster care, like this is something that really can be solved. Now, if you can't open up your home to a child, there are so many other ways, though, that we can support foster and adopted families. Things like babysitting, rides, meals, even helping out with laundry and household chores. Again, I know this is a really big topic, so whether you're interested in adopting locally or internationally, I want you guys to hear from someone who has walked through the international adoption process. You may be familiar with her. She's incredible. Again, one of my favorite authors and speakers, Lisa Harper. Her story is phenomenal. So check it out. Guys, let's be real. Being a parent is hard work. Now that I have 2 daughters of my own, it feels like the to-do list never ends. And as every parent knows, your priorities change and you have to make important decisions for your child's future. That's why term life insurance is a must for every parent. It's so easy to get and it's affordable. What you're looking for is 10 to 12 times your annual income to make sure everyone in your family is taken care of. Winston and I use Xander Insurance. They do all the work for you to find the best prices and options. So go to Xander.com to get started on a quote today, because that's who we trust to take care of our family. Lisa, thanks for coming on.
Oh, I'm so tickled you have me. I was
So
excited
fun.
just to see you.
Oh, well, I know you like travel the world. You're like preaching the gospel, doing great things. But part of your story that I love is that you're an adopted mama.
Yeah.
And
Grace
so,
of God.
yes, so your story's incredible and I'm familiar with it. But for those people that aren't, tell me a little bit just about the adoption, your adoption story.
Well, let me go back to because it's kind of tale of two cities, best of times and worst of times. Worst of times is I was hot mess on a stick when I was younger. Kind of looking for love in all the wrong places. So didn't get married because I was attracted to yahoos. And so I didn't think I'd get to be a mom. And then I had several different people in my life who spoke in my life about adoption, not saying you should adopt. I just kept hearing that theme. And you know when you feel like, okay, Lord, you've even put it on refrigerator magnets, like maybe this is something I should pray about.
It's constant. It's always
exactly.
Yeah.
So I prayed about it a lot, met with a ton of people about it. I'm job security for my counselor, talked to her about it. And then I thought, there's 147 million-ish orphans in the world as we know it today. And yeah, best case scenario, in my opinion, a child gets a mom and a dad. But there are millions and millions and millions of kids who will die before infancy in third world countries, orphanages, age out in foster care in the States. And so I just began to kind of put out some feelers and say, if there's a child who doesn't have a shot or a good chance at a mom and a dad, then maybe a fluffy single mom in Tennessee would be a better option. Started praying about it, and through just a series of miracles, first of all, I lost 2 adoption attempts that were just heart-wrenching.
Is that rather common in the adoption process?
Very common.
Yeah, you hear that.
Very common. And then a friend called me, and she said, but I just got home from Haiti, and while I was in Haiti, one of the young moms in the village I was visiting died of AIDS, undiagnosed AIDS, and she left behind a 2.5-year-old who has HIV and tuberculosis and cholera and a host of other issues. And the doctors are saying this baby won't live. She was 2 years old at the time, for 2 months. If somebody, really anybody, doesn't stand in the gap for her. And she said, while we were in the hospital, God just put your name in my heart. And she said, would you be willing to pray about this? And I said, nope. I said, I've been praying about this for 30 years. Sign me up. And then I got off the phone and said a word that wasn't in the Bible. Because I thought, goodness gracious, I don't know how to do this.
Yeah.
And then 6 weeks later, I was in Haiti, and they put her in my arms. And it took 2 years from that moment for me to actually get to bring her home to Nashville. And it was really hard and really beautiful. And she is now 10 years old and healthy as a horse. And other than Jesus, she is the most amazing thing in my life.
I mean, she is, and I've met her a few times in person, but even just like following you on Instagram, right? I'm like, just seeing her, whether it's in person or just via my phone, like the joy that this little girl has, Lisa, it is unbelievable. And so
she is really joyful.
And so, I mean, is that just her? Like, how is she now? I mean, it's just like,
she
radiates.
She had a spark when I first met her, but she was more wary than joyful because she didn't have a whole lot to be joyful for. And it's been the coolest thing to get to watch her unfold. God wired her to be joyful, and she's, very effervescent, and she's become more and more so the safer and the more love she's received.
Yes, so good. Oh my gosh. Okay, so talk to me about like the international adoption process. Like, how was that for you?
And I wasn't, a lot of people go, oh, you must have prayed about Haiti. And I'm like, no, I just was like, Lord, direct my steps. I'm not that smart, so you're gonna have to make it real clear. From my experience, and I have a ton of friends in the adoption community, there's a few more wrinkles involved just with, the visas, and it's a little more expensive going back and forth.
Yeah.
So they're different. They're apples and oranges, but I feel like God makes it clear whatever you're called to.
Absolutely. So good. So kind of off that point, it can be a somewhat of a trend of adoption.
Yeah.
Like there was kind of this like flood, I feel like the past few years of people
kind
doing
of People
it more.
Magazine, Star Trek,
Yeah, right. So my question to you is, what encouragement would you give someone to make, like kind of checking themselves? Okay, this is a true calling, conviction on your life that's been put on you, versus just thinking, oh, this sounds fun. This is great. Okay, I'm going to go for it.
Right. I recently had a friend who called me, and she was fussing because she goes, so-and-so saw your story, and now she's praying about adoption, and I just think she's doing it because it's trendy. And I just started laughing, and I said, you know what? God will purify her heart in the process. If he's called her to that, he'll keep opening the doors. So do you think you have to be prayerful about it and recognize, I'm not doing this because this is something Brad and Angelina did. God has called me to this. Seek counsel. And then if he calls you to it, I was in way, way over my head. It was so far above my capacity and my pay grade. And God has filled in every single gap. So if he's called you to it, he'll make a way. I would just say in that process of praying about it, make sure you have counsel around you.
So good. So if someone is at the point, they're like, okay, we're ready to take those steps and adopt. What advice do you have just in general for adoption?
Yeah, it's messy. It's just like life. And then your heart's involved. So you're like, goodness gracious, not only is this messy, I feel like my heart has been ripped out of my chest. It is a heart-wrenching process, but we're called to it as Christ followers. We're called to take care of the widows and orphans. So if he's called you to it, it's so worth the mess. Just don't think it's going to be neat and tidy. You can't wrap an acrostic around it.
It's just so good because I feel like sometimes you can get this picture, you see someone, you're like, oh, look, it's adoption and it looks so great. But there are the hard times, right? And even you just saying that, like, I hadn't even thought of that. But I'm like, when you have that child in another country, you have no control.
You know, I think you just know going into it, God is big enough for this.
So good.
I'm not, so I'm going to continually stay desperate to Jesus. And because he's a redeemer and a life giver, there's going to be redemption in this story.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And there's hope.
There's always hope.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
There's always hope.
So you touched on this a little bit at the beginning, but I do want to circle back. So for women out there who are single and they're starting to feel this pull, like you were talking about, like how was that in general? Just adopting it, like how were people in your life? Were you encouraged? Like what did that look like as a single woman?
It was, Rachel, I can say it can be real polarizing. You have to find a community of faith who goes, we've got your back.
Yes.
But I will say, if it's a single woman who's lonely, don't adopt a child because you're lonely. You got to be real careful about the motives of your heart, because a child isn't going to make you less lonely. Jesus makes you less lonely.
So good. The motive part is so wise, because I'm like, you can plug that into anything, right?
Absolutely.
Don't get married because you're lonely. Don't spend money because you're lonely. I mean, all of it goes back to that
carbs.
Place.
Eat carbs because you're lonely, which is one of my favorite go-tos.
I love it all. Well, you are just such a shining bright light. Like whatever room you walk into, ever since I've known you, I'm just like,
thank you.
You are just an attractive person, and you're raising, obviously, one of the sweetest little girls in the whole world.
I totally believe in arranged marriage, so
I know that's right.
Now.
I know. Well,
listen, I'd love for her to be a Cruze baby.
They could
but train them up in the way they should go, Rachel.
That's right.
You know?
I think the pairing could really happen.
Yeah.
Lisa, thanks for coming on.
Thank you for
sharing your
having me.
heart in this. It's such a huge topic, and I know we can only just scratch the surface on the show.
I'm so glad you're addressing it. So glad, because it needs to be under this canopy. So I'm so glad y'all are doing that.
Well, thank you. Well, thanks for coming on.
Yeah,
always
thank you for
good
having
to
me.
see you. Love it.
Thank you.
Wasn't Lisa great? Seriously, her story is incredible, and I love her so much. She's like one of those people I could be around all day. Now, if you want to adopt, or you know someone who wants to adopt, I've said it before and I'll say it again. It can be really expensive. But the cool thing is you can do it debt-free. So I'm really excited about our next guest, Julie Gumm. She adopted 2 kids internationally and did it debt-free. She wrote a whole book about it and has some really practical tips for you. Julie, thanks so much for being here.
It is such an honor. Thank you.
Yes, for those people watching that don't know exactly your story, tell us a little bit about your family dynamic today.
Okay.
And what made you guys want to adopt.
Okay. Well, my husband and I are high school sweethearts, so we've been married almost 26 years, and we have 4 children. And so 2 of them are biological children, and 2 of them are adopted siblings from Ethiopia that we adopted 10 years ago in 2008. So 2 boys, 2 girls, 2 adopted, 2 biological.
So before you guys went on your adoption journey, you got out of debt first, right? As a family.
We did, yeah. We kind of went gangbusters at it. We paid off our credit cards, our student loans, sold a car, got out of all of that debt in a relatively short period. So those 2 journeys are kind of really interestingly intertwined for sure.
Together, yes.
Yeah.
And then you guys did it, in an incredible way because you did it debt-free.
We
did.
To
the point that you wrote a book, you can adopt without debts, yes. Which is so good and so helpful. So like this whole episode, we're talking about adoption, a little bit about foster care, because it's on the heart of a lot of people.
Right.
And I think even in the last probably, and correct me if I'm wrong, but even 20 years of just the exposure with social media and how we're just so much more connected as a world.
Absolutely.
You just see the need, and I think people's hearts have just grown even more. And so the biggest problem though I hear with people is it's just so expensive.
Just so expensive. And
so expensive.
And that's why I wrote the book, because
Yes.
literally I would talk to people and they go, oh, that's so neat, but I could never do that because I could never afford it. I've thought about it, but I could never afford it. And so I had a friend that was urging me to write our adoption story. And I'm like, well, there's nothing really special about our adoption story, per se. And she's like, yes, there is. And so that was really it. People coming with that question. And for me to say, okay, if this is something you really want to do, then there's a way for you to do it without going into debt and without taking out huge loans or emptying your whole savings account or any of those sort of things.
So let's talk about that. So what are kind of the practical things that you guys did? Things that people can apply to their life today if they want to start this journey, but do it without going into debt.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, the first thing I would say too is looking at the different kinds of adoption. Some people, maybe you have infertility issues, and so you really want a newborn baby, and that's important to you. Other people are really drawn to international adoption, and we were for sure. And then other people, foster care. So the number one easiest way to adopt without debt is to adopt from foster care because it literally will cost you nothing. I mean, I've talked to some people, they're like, oh, we paid like $300 or a couple hundred here or there. But adopting from foster care, virtually everything is paid. And then private domestic adoption, again, that can happen several different ways, attorneys, adoption agencies, but that can range anywhere from $10,000 to $40,000, depending on where you go. And international adoption, again, you're probably looking at $20,000, $25,000, $40,000, some in excess of that. A lot of that is travel costs. Sometimes some countries you have to go 2 different times.
So the price itself changes obviously with which type you go through.
Right.
So how did you guys do it debt-free, and how do people do it debt-free? Like what's in the book, Julie? Give us the secrets.
Well, I actually wish I had written the book before I adopted because I learned a lot through the process of writing the book that I thought, wow, I wish I had known that. We did do some fundraising, which we can talk about, but I, at the time, was doing a lot of freelance work, web design, that sort of stuff. Just when people came to me, we probably paid for about $10,000 to $12,000 of our adoption fees with just freelance jobs.
Just extra work, essentially.
Extra work, yeah. My husband was selling stuff on eBay. We did have a big garage sale with some friends. I'm trying to think, and then just being tight with our money, kind of going back to those things that you did when you were working on the debt snowball and like don't eat out as much and don't impulse buy the cute shirt at Target. And some of those, I just put it back every time.
It's a sad day when that happens, but it's good discipline.
So some of those types of things. And so that's how we did it. But there are lots of different stories and lots of different ways that different people do it.
Yes,
so.
And I've had friends that have gone on this journey and they've done a lot of fundraising. So talk about that a little bit. Like what are ways people... creative ideas or things that people don't think about when it just comes to classic fundraising.
Yeah, there's so much fun stuff that you can do, actually. And I think a lot of people, when they hear fundraising, they're like, oh, I don't want to ask for handouts. And that's fine. We have a family that did a karaoke night. It was like, you pay $5 and you can make somebody stand up and sing some really embarrassing song. When they get called, they pay money. They can make somebody else come sing. You could pay a cover fee when you walked in of like $30 and then nobody could sign you up to sing. And they made
funny.
Yeah.
That's probably what I do. And they made I do 60 just to verify that I don't have to get up and sing.
I would too. And they made like $1,300 that night, and so it was just a really fun time.
That's so great. Because I do because I have friends in my mind right now thinking about them, is they're always like, oh, I just feel weird asking for money.
Yes.
Some people do GoFundMe pages or all of that, but this set of friends. And so just thinking of creative ways. And I'm like, oh gosh, that is it's so out of the box. And if you are the person taking the money and you feel uncomfortable just asking for it, you're getting involved doing other things that is still receiving that profit that you're able to use towards the adoptions. And even going back to just like the simplicity of what you said at the very beginning of like working extra and watching the budget and cutting expenses. It's like you're saving up for something because adoption and kids in general, I mean, whenever you just talk about family, emotions rise high, right? I mean, like it's a very emotional thing. But to say, okay, we're gonna slow down the pace a little bit, and we're gonna look to see how can we do this wisely, and do this without debt, and that the fact that it is possible.
It is possible.
And you did 2 adoption processes through international.
One process, same time.
But 2 children,
it wasn't double, which is nice. But
that's true. That's true. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so what are things that you wish you had known in this process before entering it? That
I wish I had known about the resources out there for help, too. There's different grant organizations that will either do direct grants. Show Hope is one. There are some that will do matching funds for you, and so that's great. 2, like second income. I did the web design freelance thing, but there are a lot of organizations out there who have adoption benefits. So if you are going to go out and try and find a second job, like try and find one at a place that's going to give you some money at the same time.
Right. Partner with while you're getting the extra job.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's amazing. Well, Julie, I feel like you just give such hope to this subject to the point that like it's possible.
It is possible.
So possible. And there's so many resources out there. There's so many ways to go about it. And you can. So if your heart for adoption is there, there's a way to do it debt-free.
Yeah. Don't let the money stop you.
And you're a living proof of it.
Yeah.
So, well, Julie, thank you.
Thank you.
So much. Seriously, in your book, You Can Adopt Without Debt. If you're a family that wants to adopt, seriously, buy it off Amazon. Go ahead, purchase it. So many great ideas in here, and you're just awesome. So thank you so much, Julie. I really appreciate you coming on.
Thanks, Rachel.
Oh, this was such an inspiring episode. Thank you so much to Lisa and Julie for coming on. I just love them. And if you're thinking about adopting, I've made something special for this episode. So click the link in the show notes to get my debt-free adoption tracker. This will help keep you motivated as you use some of those creative ideas that Julie gave us to save up for your adoption. So thank you guys so much for watching. And if you've not subscribed to my YouTube channel or my podcast, make sure to do that so you don't miss any new money tips coming from me. And as always, make sure to take control of your money and create a life you love.